Before we start this incredible story, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot and it makes sure you will never miss any of our amazing future stories. Thank you for being here with me. Now, let's dive into today's story. Imagine this. You are standing on the bridge of a great warship, watching a distant enemy fleet move into formation. But instead of preparing to fight, instead of raising their shields and charging their weapons, they are doing something you never expected. They are transmitting a message, a simple one. They are surrendering. No shots fired, no words exchanged. Just surrender. All because they saw you coming. This is the story of the most feared human warship ever built. A ship so powerful, so terrifying, in its presence that entire enemy armies chose to surrender rather than face it. And today, you and I will walk through this story together, piece by piece, and uncover why and how this happened. Not through fantasy, but through the choices, the designs, and the spirit that humanity put into one single ship that changed everything in the galaxy. It all started during a time when humanity was still young among the stars. Other species had been traveling between planets for thousands of years, some even tens of thousands. Humanity was a newcomer, and newcomers are usually not taken seriously. At first, humans tried to be peaceful. They joined the galactic councils. They traded. They learned languages and cultures. They worked hard to show they could be trusted. But as time passed, it became clear that not every race wanted peace. Some saw humanity's kindness as weakness. Some believed that humans would be easy to conquer, easy to enslave. And when the attacks came, humanity was not fully ready. Border colonies were lost. Space stations were destroyed. Millions of lives were taken in brutal raids. The galaxy was a cruel place, and the humans learned this lesson in blood. But humanity has a strength that even they did not fully understand until then. It is the ability to learn, to adapt, and to endure. Instead of folding under pressure, humanity began to build. They studied every enemy ship that fell into their hands. They learned from every defeat. They collected technology, designs, strategies. And then they did something that no one else expected. They decided to build a ship that was not just a little better than the enemy ships, not just faster or bigger or stronger. No. They decided to build a ship that would be so completely overwhelming that no normal fleet could stand against it. A ship that would carry such force, such speed, and such armor that any enemy faced with it would realize they had no chance. The ship was called the Revenant, a name chosen carefully, because in many human legends, a revenant is a spirit that cannot be stopped, a force that returns from death, unstoppable, inevitable. And this ship would be exactly that for humanity. Construction began in secret, deep, inside the asteroid belt of the Sol system, hidden inside a hollowed-out dwarf planet. The shipyards worked day and night. Every new piece of technology, every new material, every lesson learned from countless battles was poured into the Revenant. It was not designed like a normal warship. Most warships in the galaxy were sleek, beautiful, almost works of art. The Revenant was none of these things. It was ugly, brutal. Angular plates of armor stacked upon each other, designed to absorb and deflect any weapon known. Enormous engines that could hurl the ship across space at terrifying speed. Shields layered so thickly they seemed impossible. And then there were the weapons. Human engineers did not simply copy alien designs. They improved them. They created railguns that could fire slugs at near light speed, tearing through any armor. They created plasma lances that burned holes through battleships. They created missile pods that carried thousands of smart warheads, each able to outthink enemy defenses. And as if that was not enough, they built new kinds of weapons that the galaxy had never seen before. Gravity cannons that could twist enemy ships apart from the inside. Electromagnetic disruptors that could fry entire fleet systems. And hidden deep inside the ship, systems so advanced and so secret that only the highest commanders knew about them. The crew of the Revenant was chosen just as carefully as the ship was built. No ordinary soldiers, only the best of the best. veterans of dozens of battles, pilots who could dance their ships through asteroid fields at full speed, engineers who could fix a broken reactor with nothing but wire and willpower, and above all, leaders who understood not just war, but humanity itself. Because the Revenant was not just a machine, it was a message, a symbol, a promise to any enemy who thought humanity could be crushed, a reminder that humans would never again be prey. The first deployment of the Revenant was almost an accident. A human colony called Elysium had been surrounded by the fleets of the Sarn, a proud and ruthless race that had long considered humans to be little more than pests. The Sarn had prepared a full invasion, confident that the small human defense force would be easily overwhelmed. But before the Sarn could attack, the Revenant arrived. At first, the Sarn commanders laughed. One ship? Against an entire fleet of 200 warships? It seemed absurd. They scanned the Revenant. They saw the massive armor. They noted the heavy weapons. But still, they believed numbers would win. So they charged. And that was when they made their last mistake. The Revenant did not engage like a normal ship. It did not form up in defensive lines. It did not launch fighters in waves. Instead, it charged, straight at the heart of the enemy fleet. Its railguns fired first, lances of kinetic energy ripping apart capital ships in single shots. Its missiles followed smart swarms tearing through escorts and support craft. Enemy shields failed like paper in a storm. Plasma lances melted battleships into slag. Gravity cannons twisted cruisers into scrap. Within minutes, the battlefield was chaos. But it was not just the weapons that broke the Sarn. It was the realization that nothing they did mattered. They fired everything they had. Lasers, torpedoes, mass drivers. The Revenant's shields held. Its armor shrugged off attacks that could vaporize other ships. And it kept coming. Every ship that stood in its way was destroyed. Every commander who tried to regroup found themselves cut down. The Sarn fleet, once proud and confident, fell into panic. Some ships tried to flee. Some surrendered. Some self-destructed to avoid capture. When it was over, not a single Sarn ship remained operational. The message spread quickly. Across the galaxy, whispers of the Revenant grew. Stories of a human warship that could not be stopped, that could not be killed. Some dismissed it as propaganda. Others, those who had seen it with their own eyes, knew the truth. And when the Revenant entered a new battlefield, often it did not have to fire a single shot. Entire enemy fleets, faced with the choice between certain death and surrender, chose to lay down their arms, not out of kindness, not out of diplomacy, but out of sheer primal fear. In the next part of our story, we will explore how the Revenant changed not just battles but entire wars, how it reshaped the balance of power in the galaxy, how it made humanity, once seen as weak and easy prey, into one of the most respected and feared civilizations among the stars. The galaxy was never the same after the Revenant appeared. Before, the humans were a young race, often ignored or bullied by stronger powers. After the Revenant, everyone had to think twice before touching a human colony or ship. News of the Revenant's victories traveled faster than light. Merchants spoke of it in whispers at spaceports. Soldiers told stories around fires on distant planets. Leaders of powerful empires held quiet meetings wondering what they could do if the Revenant ever came for them. The fear was not only about the ship's weapons or armor. It was the deep knowledge that if humans could build one Revenant, maybe they could build more. Many governments in the galaxy began studying humans more closely. They sent spies. They hired experts. They tried to understand how a race so new could create something so powerful. What they found was even more frightening. The Revenant was not built with the most advanced alien technology. It was not a product of some magical discovery. It was built with hard work, clever thinking, and pure human willpower. Humans did not wait for someone to hand them power. They created it themselves. That realization shook the galaxy. Because if humans could do it once, they could do it again and better. Some empires tried to prepare. They upgraded their fleets. They built bigger ships. They trained harder. But deep down, they knew it would not be enough. Because the Revenant showed something more important than strength. It showed determination. It showed the human spirit that refuses to break. Even if they somehow managed to destroy the Revenant, the humans would simply build another, and another, and another, until the stars themselves bowed to them. One of the most important battles where the Revenant's true power became clear was the defense of Meridian. Meridian was a key human colony located near a rich cluster of resources. It was beautiful, filled with green landscapes and bright blue oceans, but its location also made it a target. The Creel Empire, known for their brutality and hunger for resources, decided to take it. They gathered a fleet of 500 ships, including massive dreadnoughts that had ruled many wars before. They believed it would be an easy victory. After all, no single ship, no matter how strong, could stand against such numbers. Or so they thought. The humans had other plans. They did not send the Revenant alone. This time, the Revenant came at the head of a small human fleet. Only 20 ships, 20 against 500. It looked like suicide. But the Creel commanders underestimated what it meant to fight humans after they had learned the lessons of survival and loss. The Revenant led the charge, breaking through the enemy lines with terrifying speed. It targeted the command ships first. Railgun slugs ripped through bridge decks, killing leadership in seconds. Gravity cannons turned battleships into twisted wrecks. Missile swarms confused enemy targeting systems, creating chaos across the battlefield. But the smaller human ships were just as deadly. Inspired by the Revenant, they fought like demons. They darted between larger ships, striking at weak points, supporting each other perfectly. Within the first hour, over 100 Creel ships were disabled or destroyed. Their formations broke apart. The Creel tried to regroup, tried to surround the Revenant, but they found themselves outmatched at every turn. The Revenant's shield systems absorbed unbelievable punishment. Its armor plates glowed red from heat, but they held. Every attempt to board it failed. Every special weapon they fired bounced off or was neutralized by human countermeasures. At one point, seeing their fleet in disarray, the Creel admiral called for a full retreat. But it was too late. Human ships cut off their escape routes. The Creel ships that surrendered were taken in peacefully. Those who resisted were reduced to drifting metal. In the end, the Creel lost almost their entire fleet, and Meridian remained free. After that battle, no one doubted anymore that humanity was a power to be feared and respected. The Creel Empire collapsed within a year, not because the humans invaded them, but because their enemies, seeing the Creel's weakness, attacked them from all sides. Their people lost faith in their leaders. Their systems rebelled. Their colonies declared independence. All because one battle showed that even their greatest fleets could not stand against humanity. After Meridian, the Revenant became a legend. It would appear on the edge of a system, and entire fleets would surrender without a fight. Even races that had never seen it with their own eyes feared it. Some commanders went so far as to program their ships to flee automatically if the Revenant was detected. Others sent diplomats offering peace treaties and trade agreements, hoping to avoid confrontation. But the Revenant was not just a tool of war. It became a symbol of hope for many oppressed peoples across the galaxy. When enslaved worlds heard of the ship, they began to dream of freedom. Secret messages traveled across light years. If only the humans came. If only the Revenant appeared, maybe then their chains would be broken. In one case, on the planet Kairos, a slave rebellion began simply because a rumor spread that the Revenant was coming. Thousands rose up against their masters, seizing ships, weapons, and supplies. By the time human forces actually arrived weeks later, the people of Kairos had already freed themselves, all because of the hope that one ship, one symbol had given them. Not everyone loved the Revenant, of course. Some races hated humanity even more because of it. They called humans arrogant, dangerous, reckless. They formed secret alliances, plotting ways to destroy the Revenant and bring humanity back down. They invested in new weapons, new technologies. Some even experimented with forbidden sciences, building terrible creations they hoped could counter human strength. But every time a new threat arose, humanity adapted. They improved the Revenant. New layers of armor, new generations of shields, smarter and deadlier weapons. It became not just a ship, but a living symbol of humanity's endless will to survive and thrive. No matter what was thrown at them, they found a way to overcome. One of the greatest challenges to the Revenant came from the Zorath Dominion, a civilization famous for their biological technology. Instead of machines, they grew their ships from living tissue. They created massive living battleships, faster and more flexible than anything mechanical. They believed their living fleets could outfight anything human technology could create. They launched a surprise attack on several human worlds, hoping to destroy humanity's spirit before the Revenant could respond. The battle that followed was one of the most intense the galaxy had ever seen. The Zorath fleets moved like schools of fish, weaving and striking with precision. Their living ships adapted to damage, healing wounds quickly. At first, it seemed even the Revenant might be overwhelmed, but the humans had prepared. New plasma weapons were installed, designed to burn through living tissue faster than it could heal. New electronic warfare systems confused the living ships' communication, making them crash into each other. The Revenant fought for days without rest. Its crew pushed themselves to the limit, refusing to yield. Bit by bit, the Zorath forces were beaten back. Their living ships, once proud and terrifying, were turned into drifting, broken hulks. The Dominion sued for peace soon after, realizing that nothing they could grow would ever be enough to stop human willpower backed by human technology. These battles and victories were not just about firepower. They were about message, about respect, about survival. Humanity never claimed they were perfect. They made mistakes. They lost people. They mourned their dead. But through it all, they remembered why they fought. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for freedom, for the right to live, without fear, for the promise that never again would anyone take from them what was theirs. The Revenant sailed across the stars like a guardian, a silent warning to all who would threaten human worlds, but also a beacon of hope for all who dreamed of a better future. It became more than a ship. It became a myth, a living story told across generations, across worlds, across cultures. New generations grew up hearing the name Revenant. Children dreamed of joining its crew one day. Poets wrote songs about it. Artists painted it with glowing halos. Even among humans themselves, it took on a life of its own. Governments tried to build more ships like it. Some succeeded, creating fleets that could match the Revenant's firepower, but none ever fully captured its spirit. Because the Revenant was not just steel and fire. It was heart. It was sacrifice. It was the living proof of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the edge. And so wherever it went, the Revenant brought change, sometimes through battle, sometimes through the simple fact of its presence. Enemies thought twice. Allies stood taller. The galaxy, once chaotic and cruel, began to shift. New treaties were signed. Old wars ended. Peace, even if fragile, found its way into corners of space that had known only bloodshed for centuries. The Revenant showed that power without purpose is empty, that strength without kindness is hollow, and that true greatness is not in crushing your enemies, but in standing, so tall that your enemies have no choice but to respect you. In the next part of the story, we will explore how the Revenant's legacy shaped not only humanity, but the galaxy itself, how its name became part of the stars, and how, even when the ship itself finally reached the end of its journey, its spirit lived on forever. The Revenant sailed through the stars for many years. It became part of life across human space and beyond. People did not just see it as a ship anymore. They saw it as a protector, a promise, a living proof that humanity would never again be easy prey for any empire, any invader, or any enemy. Wherever the Revenant appeared, fear and hope traveled with it. Fear for those who wished harm, hope for those who believed in freedom. But even the strongest things must one day face change. Time moved forward. Technology advanced. New generations of ships were built. Ships that were faster, lighter, more efficient. Yet none could replace what the Revenant stood for. It was more than its weapons, more than its armor. It was a living symbol of human spirit. The galaxy watched carefully. Some hoped the Revenant would fade quietly, letting old fears rest. Others worried that the humans might build an even greater terror. Humans themselves were divided. Some leaders believed the Revenant had served its purpose and should be retired with honor. Others argued it must continue to sail, as a constant reminder that humanity would never be caught unprepared again. Debates raged in government halls, in council chambers across planets and stations. And through it all, the Revenant continued its silent watch over human worlds, its crew loyal and proud, knowing they carried a legacy on their shoulders. The question became harder when the Revenant showed signs of aging. Even the best maintenance could not stop the slow hand of time. Systems needed more repairs. Newer ships could travel farther, faster. Supplies became harder to find for its old models of technology. Still, the crew fought to keep her alive. Every patch, every repair was done with love and respect. They knew they were caretakers of a legend, and they would not let it die easily. The final mission of the Revenant began almost by accident. A distress call came from a small human colony on the edge of known space. Piracy had always been a danger in the outer zones, but this time it was something worse. A coalition of rogue fleets made up of deserters, criminals, and those who hated the peace humanity had helped bring, had gathered a massive force. They believed they could strike at human space, destroy the smaller colonies, and shake the new balance of power. They had powerful ships, stolen or built in secret. They had no fear of law or treaty, and they were ready to kill anyone who stood in their way. The Revenant was nearby. No other fleet could reach the colony in time. No reinforcements were close enough. The crew of the Revenant faced a choice. They could wait for backup, knowing it would arrive too late to save the people. Or they could charge into battle one last time, knowing the risks. There was no hesitation. The Revenant turned its course toward the colony. It lit its ancient engines one more time, and it flew into history. The battle was brutal. The rogue fleets were numerous and aggressive. They knew they faced the legendary human warship. They believed that time and decay had made it weak. They thought they could destroy it and become heroes to those who hated humanity. They were wrong. The Revenant fought with a fury that shook the stars. Every weapon it had, every system still working, was pushed to the limit. Railguns fired until barrels glowed. Plasma lances burned holes through enemy ranks. Missile swarms danced between ships, finding targets even in the chaos. The crew fought like lions. Engineers ran through smoke-filled corridors, patching power lines by hand. Gunners pushed overheating systems to fire again and again. Pilots maneuvered the great ship like a sword, striking deep into enemy lines. Damage alarms rang constantly. Fires broke out on decks. Hull breaches opened and were sealed with desperate speed. Still the Revenant fought. Still it held the line. Enemy ships fell like rain. Some tried to flee. Some rammed the Revenant in mad attempts to bring it down. The ship shook. Armor plates cracked. Systems failed one by one. But the Revenant did not stop. It would not stop. It was not in its nature. It had been built to survive, to fight, to protect. And it would do so until its last breath. At the height of the battle, when it seemed the ship might finally fall, something incredible happened. Other human ships, hearing the distress calls and the news that the Revenant was fighting alone, pushed their engines beyond safe limits to join the fight. One by one, human ships appeared on the battlefield. Old frigates, new cruisers, civilian transports retrofitted with weapons. They came from every corner of nearby space. Crews risked their lives without orders, without promises of reward. They came for one reason only: to stand with the Revenant, to stand with the symbol that had protected them for so long. Together, they broke the rogue fleets. They shattered the enemy forces until nothing remained but wreckage drifting in cold space. The colony was saved. The people were safe, but the Revenant was dying. Its core systems were beyond repair. Its engines flickered and failed. Life support barely held together. The ship had given everything it had, and now it was time to rest. The crew evacuated with heavy hearts. They left no systems behind for enemies to capture, only the empty shell of the greatest ship humanity had ever built. As the last shuttle pulled away, the captain, who had served on the Revenant for over 30 years, gave a final salute. Then, with a silent command, a demolition charge was triggered deep inside the ship. The Revenant's remains turned into a brilliant light in the darkness of space, a beacon that marked the end of an era. But even though the Revenant was gone, its spirit lived on. Across human space, monuments were built, songs were written, stories were told to children about the ship that never surrendered, about the crew who fought with their hearts, about the symbol that had given hope to millions. And even beyond human worlds, the legend grew. Some alien races who once feared the Revenant now respected it. They spoke of it as a force of nature, something beyond simple ships and weapons. It had become part of the galaxy's story. Humanity moved forward. They built new ships, stronger, faster, smarter. But every ship that carried a human crew, every soldier who took an oath to protect others, remembered the Revenant. Its name was carved into academies. Its image floated above parades. It became part of what it meant to be human, to endure, to protect, to fight not for power, but for the right to live free. There were many who wondered if another ship could ever match the Revenant. Many designs were drawn, many engineers dreamed, but deep down, everyone knew the truth. The Revenant was born from a special time, from a special need. It had risen when humanity faced its greatest test, and it had answered that test with strength and courage that would be remembered forever. Some said they had seen the Revenant's ghost, strange readings on distant sensors, a massive ship silhouette passing silently through asteroid fields, faint echoes on communication bands like a last goodbye from the past. Whether true or not, these stories kept the spirit alive. They reminded everyone that heroes never truly die. They live in the hearts and minds of those they inspire. The Revenant taught humanity and the galaxy a lesson that could not be forgotten. That real strength is not just in weapons or numbers. It is in will, in the decision to stand even when the odds say you should fall, in the courage to protect others, even when you might lose everything, and in the quiet, unbreakable promise that some things are worth fighting for, no matter the cost. As new generations took their place among the stars, they carried this lesson with them. Explorers venturing into the unknown, soldiers defending distant worlds, diplomats building new bridges between races. All carried a piece of the Revenant's spirit. It became part of what humanity was. A people who could be kind, and yet fierce. A people who could build beauty, and yet fight with unstoppable strength when needed. In time, other ships took the Revenant's place in human fleets. New names became famous. New battles were fought. But no ship ever captured hearts the same way. No ship ever stood so tall, so proud, so fierce. The Revenant remained a symbol that could not be replaced, because it had been born not just from technology but from love, from pain, from hope. There are some who say that somewhere deep in the uncharted parts of space a ship still sails, a ship of ancient armor and burning will, a ship that answers no beacon, no call, but watches silently from the shadows, protecting humanity without being seen, waiting for the day it might be needed again. Maybe it is just a story. Maybe it is just the dream of those who loved the Revenant. Or maybe, just maybe, some ships, like some souls, are too strong to ever truly die. And maybe one day when the stars are again dark with danger and hope seems lost, a great shadow will fall across the sky, and the enemies of humanity will once more feel that old fear. And they will know that the Revenant has returned.